So I have the cover printed here on some matte paper. I've printed it on this 220 grams per square metre matte coated inkjet paper, and now I'm just going to apply a layer of decoupage to it. So I have some gloves on to protect my hands, and I have a foam brush to apply the decoupage. So this is Prattley's Craftex decoupage sealant. So I dip the foam brush in the decoupage and get a fairly generous coating on it, and apply to my printed design. Just apply it in one way, so this way I'm going horizontally across the paper with the foam brush. I'll just get some more on the brush and apply it to the rest of the paper. So it's quite a generous coating of decoupage, and I apply just in one direction. Any excess decoupage you can just sort of slide back into here for later. I then like to get just a wider foam brush and just slowly pull across the design like so. And in between layers, I just pop my foam brushes in a plastic bag just to save having to wash them, and this way they also stay wet enough for the next coat. You only need to wait about 20 to 30 minutes for the coat to dry. So I'll just do the next one now. I'll just move this one. And we'll decoupage this one. So we'll just put the decoupage in one direction again. And you be quite liberal with the amount that you put on it. It's quite a thick paper, so it can stand it. So I like to completely coat it. Put any excess back, and then just go in one direction here. Okay, now I'll just grab the larger brush again and just slowly drag the larger brush across just to smoothen everything out. Okay, it's now actually about 1 hour since I put the first coat on these, so I'm just going to now put a second coat of decoupage. So I've been keeping my foam brush in this plastic bag here. So with the second coat of decoupage, I'm going to apply it up and down, so this way, so at right angles to the first coat. So the final product will have a slightly hatched look in the texture. Just get a little bit more decoupage on there. And all the movements are just up and down. There's a bit too much decoupage on it, so I'll just put the excess back in here. Just make sure there's a nice covering over everything. Just pop the excess back in there, and I'll just get my bigger brush just to even out the brush strokes. So if you do try and make your movements all in one go over the cover from the top to the bottom. So here's the second cover. Get my smaller brush that will fit in this decoupage container. I would be using the bigger brush for everything, but I can't get the bigger brush into this container. So once again, we're doing everything just up and down. So that's a good coverage all over. And now I'll just get the larger brush just to tidy up the brush strokes on the cover. I'm starting slowly on this side. It's going all the way from the top to the bottom. Okay, I'll put the second cover off to the side to dry. It's now been about 2 hours since I decoupaged the paper, so it is dry. So from this cover I'm going to make a pocket wide TN. So I have a template here just to show you the sizing. The pocket wide size is 6 inches high by 9.5 inches wide. So the paper that I designed here, I made slightly larger than that in all directions. So we need to trim it to size so that it will also be 6 inches high by 9.5 inches wide. So I'm going to use a paper cutter for this. So First of all, I'm just going to trim a small section of the edge. There we go, so we've trimmed that much. So from this edge, I'm going to put the cut edge along here. I'll just put the template here to see how much I need to cut off each side. So now we have two straight edges to measure from. So this way we want 9.5 inches. And in this direction 6 inches. Didn't quite cut through there. Whoops. I'll just use scissors there. Just use some scissors to tidy that up. There we go. So there's our template at 6 inches by 9.5, and that's the size that we've cut this. So the Traveller's Notebook cover will be like this when it's finished. The next step is to attach the heat transfer adhesive to the back of the paper. So the adhesive that I'm using is this Legacy brand fusible web and adhesive with backing, Easy Steam 2. Just to read what's here, it says two-sided pressure sensitive fusible web. So it comes on a long roll like this, and we just cut some to fit the size of the paper. So we'll do that now. And we'll put the fusible web on the back of the paper. So it's sort of like a large piece of double-sided tape, really. It can be a bit tricky to get the web off the second piece of paper. I've torn the corner off the fusible web paper backing in the hope of getting to the web using a pin. So if we can just get the pin under a little bit of the web, you see here, then we're in business. So the web peels off like this, and we'll stick that onto the back of the paper. And just smooth out any wrinkles. So there we have it. That's the heat transferable webbing onto the paper. So what we need to do now is just trim the webbing from all around the edges here. So we can just use scissors for that. Right, so there we have it. We have a decoupage paper and we have the heat fusible web on the back. So the next step is to get an iron, and we iron our leather or faux leather or fabric or whatever it is that you want to iron to be the inside of the traveller's notebook cover. Okay, I do apologise for the lighting. It is the evening, so the lighting isn't fantastic. Here I've got a black leather, which I'm going to put on the inside of the traveller's notebook cover. So I put it leather side down on my ironing board. So this is the inside of the leather, which will go against the inside of the paper. So there's a little bit of adhesive on this heat fusible web, so we can use a little bit of pressure to push the paper onto the leather. So there we have it there. Now to make the two adhere permanently, we need to use some heat. Okay, so the next step is to iron this together to use the heat to fuse the two sides. This is some cooking paper, baking paper. So we'll put the cooking paper on the paper side. I have the iron on a medium dry heat. I'm just going to place the iron down for a few seconds and then pick it up and do the same along the length of the cover. And this heat is what is fusing that web to make the paper side and the leather side combine. Oops, this isn't the baking paper. Oops. That's the paper backing off the fusible web. Okay, let's try that again with the baking paper. No damage done. So we'll just use some heat. Okay. I generally check the corners to see if it's fused yet, and that corner's lifting a little bit, so I don't think it's yet had enough heat to fuse it. So in this case we'll apply some more heat to it. Different leathers which I've used seem to take different amounts of time to fuse, so it's really a matter of just fusing it a little bit and checking if it's not ready. Just apply some more heat with your dry iron. Until it is fused together. check it now. Yep, that seems to be nicely fused together. So the next step is just to cut along the edges here. I notice I've got a few little bits of fluffy underside of leather on here, so I'm just going to get a baby wipe and just gently remove those few bits of black fluff there where the underside of the leather's just stuck to it during that process. There we go. You can also iron from this side just to make sure everything's well and truly fused. So that's the notebook. And you can just spend a little bit of time going around the edges and trimming and tidying. Once you're happy with that, the next step is to make the holes in the traveller's notebook cover, to thread the elastic through, and also to round the corners of the cover if you want rounded corners. Okay, so I like to round the corners on my covers. If you have a corner chomper, that's an easy process. I don't, so I use this old corner rounder, which doesn't work very well, but it works well enough just to mark the corner so I can then cut the corner. So we'll do that to all four corners. Okay, so it doesn't take very long with scissors, and you have four rounded corners. The next step is to punch the holes for the elastics. So to punch the holes, I use the template as a guide. So I place the template on the TN cover and then use binder clips to hold the two in place. To punch these holes, I use a crocodile. I punch it with a 1/8 of an inch diameter hole, and the hole is 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the TN cover. So you can use the template to help you see where to put those holes. There we go. So to punch this hole, I use one of these hollow punch sets, which are for punching holes in leather, plastic, vinyl, paper and other soft materials. So I use the 1/8 of an inch hollow punch. So you need a hard surface under this, because you need to actually punch the hole using a hammer. So you place the punch on the hole, that might be a bit loud on camera. Okay, so there you can see we have a hole all the way through the paper and the leather. For the elastics for travellers' notebooks, a 2mm round elastic is normally used. So this one here has a 2mm round elastic, both around the traveller's notebook and stringing the books together inside. For some of my pocket-sized traveller's notebooks, I've actually used a 1mm round elastic. So this one here has a 1mm elastic. I wouldn't use 1mm for a size larger than pocket, but for pocket, I quite like the slightly smaller diameter elastic. So I'm going to use a 1mm elastic for this one. So to work out the amount of elastic you need to string the book with 4 elastics, you need approximately 4.5 times the height of the traveller's notebook. So I've cut a piece here, and just to show you, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and about another half. So I like to just heat seal the ends of the elastic before I start. This will just stop the elastic from fraying. Okay, that wasn't meant to catch on fire like that, but it's fine. I'm fine, the house is fine. Okay, so we'll go up through the centre hole to about halfway, and then we grab the other side of the elastic and we pop that up the hole beside the centre hole, and we run that straight down into the end hole and then back up the centre hole. So then this one goes back down the centre, so we just move that elastic to the side to pop it through here. Because I am using a 1mm elastic, this is a fairly simple process. It's a bit trickier with the 2mm to get the 2 sets of elastic through the centre hole. And then into this hole, down to the bottom, and then back up through the centre. Here we go, and then we just tie a knot in these two. Is to make the elastic to go across the centre of the notebook. So for this elastic, I like to measure the width of the notebook and then add about 1 inch to it. Then we just gather the 2 ends together and just do a simple knot in the end, and then I'll just heat seal the ends. Right, and then we grab this end of it and pop it through this hole, and the knot catches, and then over, and there we go, one traveller's notebook cover.